Welcome, everyone, to Touching Base. I'm your host, Eric Arnold, and today I'm joined by my friends, Joe Olson, Andy Enck, and Andrew Nall. Gentlemen, how you guys doing tonight?
Not bad.
Great, thank you.
This will be our 10th episode, and just like on the majority of our episodes, as long as we don't have a guest, I always ask guys the most important question. We are friends who have known each other for a long time and like to, get together even though we're far apart and have one drink together during the week. So my important question to you is, what are you drinking tonight?
Just the standard Yingling for me tonight.
Oh, wow. Good for you.
I'm gonna get my girly pants on and do a strawberry Rita.
No shame in your game. Don't be upset by it. We got soup.
Yeah, I'm off the soup bandwagon, back on the Land Shark bandwagon.
And I'm actually going with a local brew, a Mully's, has a new beer called the Knuckle Puck. And I am a huge Mighty Ducks fan, as some of you guys might know. So I don't even know what kind of beer it is, but I know just by the name, it was calling me. So that's what I got for tonight's evening. We've got a lot to catch up on. We missed last week. We want to recap on the NFL draft and how our picks did. We want to talk about DC sports reopening. We want to talk about Russell Westbrook. We want to talk about playoff hockey that's happening. So let's try to get to it as much as we can. First, just recapping the NFL draft. Any surprises out there? Kirk Cousins did not get traded in a surprise move, despite, I'm sure, Minnesota's best efforts. However, Joe, you did pick Jacksonville. You had two of their picks, and you nailed both of them. So congratulations to you.
Well, I will say that probably 99.8% of the population out there had the first pick that I had correct, also with Trevor Lawrence. But I did also chime in and say that they might take Travis Etienne with their second pick later in the first round. And I was basing that on the fact that he's his buddy from Clemson. And I think that they also weren't super deep at running back. And so that's probably just a good move. They're trying to solidify their future, hopefully Hall of Fame quarterback and everything like that. So I think that did a lot to make him happy. But other than that, I think that they are just a winner by virtue of the fact that they have probably the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck. And they are probably looking at, the most exciting lead into a season since they've had in really a long time. So
I noticed that when you said best quarterback prospect, you did not mention their new tight end, Tim Tebow. We don't have to spend a lot of time on it. I know that I was jumping for joy because I was all about that Tebow mania. I jumped all over the bandwagon. No, I think it's an absolute ridiculous move, if I'm being honest. But I just want to hear your guys' quick opinion on it.
Well, I'll say that first, let's be honest, he has a long shot at making the team, but the obvious connections are there, right? I mean, the Urban Meyer connection is super obvious. He's from the Jacksonville area and all that kind of good stuff, Florida prospect. But honestly, he's a guy that if he does make the team, it'll sell a few tickets, and Jacksonville has been in need of that kind of stuff, over the last few years. And so if they waste a roster spot on giving him a tight end position, fine. We understand what it's about. He's not going to be a Hall of Fame tight end or anything like that, but I think that we understand what that's about. They need to sell tickets, and they understand the connections with the new coach and everything like that. So
I think I have two things about this one. Now, if it were 6 years ago, I would say totally. It's awesome because he was still in his football shape. He was still around the game. And second, if I look back, he did have a killer mentor at Florida at tight end, if you remember correctly.
Damn it. I had one prepared.
Man. Did you have that one loaded? Were you?
That was probably better. My thought was Urban Meyer, Florida tight ends. What could go wrong? But Andy did a nice job.
He beat you to it.
Yeah.
He called his name first. Well played, sir. I personally think you guys hit it on the head. I mean, this is a marketing ploy. I don't think it hurts anything. I only wonder if the circus will outweigh any kind of production, because there will be a media circus around this. It's already starting. He's a gifted athlete. He tries hard. He's apparently everything you understand. He's a great leader. All that kind of good stuff. I don't realistically see him making it to the final cuts. I mean, I could see him making it to week 2. I don't know. He'll do okay for a while, but I just don't see it happening. I'm rooting for it. I enjoy the craziness. But if there's legitimately trying to become a serious team, I don't see this being the answer for them. All right. So my question to you is, does anybody here think he'll make the final roster?
I think he might. I think there's a chance that he might, just because they're coming off not only several down years, but they also are looking to sell some tickets and everything like that. Regardless of whether it's coming off a pandemic year or anything like that. I do think that the Urban Meyer connection is a nice target of opportunity that they might take advantage of.
He's going to have to find some role. I mean, like,
right,
he might not even be tight end, but he's going to have to do something. 4th and 1, quarterback sneak. I don't know, something like that.
My question was going to be, does he play special teams, right? Because that's the only, if you're going to be the 52nd or 53rd guy on the roster, or the 45th or 46th guy active, you need to play on all special teams.
Yeah, if he makes the team, it's not because of his play at tight end. It's because of his having that voice in the locker room or having somebody be a good guide for them. But that's just too much to carry as your third tight end.
How much voice can you have as the backup tight end? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know that at one point in time, sure, but his roles changed quite a bit now. I mean, he went and played baseball. Like, I don't know. I mean, I think he'll make more money giving speeches around that area. But it's worth giving him a shot, I guess, but I don't see it happening. But we'll see on that. Other big news, if they're trying to sell tickets, DC's trying to sell some tickets right now. It looks like DC is going to be opening up. Kind of restaurants are opening up a little bit. Games are opening up a little bit. Hopefully by the time the Capitals, if they can advance a little bit in the playoff hockey, we can actually get a full capacity there. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Well, I'll go first, and I'll just say that, hey, any opportunity
you can push it for this. Yeah.
Any opportunity to open up is something I'm in favor of. People can make their own decisions based on what they're comfortable with their families and everything. I think there's a big population out there that's looking for opportunities to go and watch sports and everything like that. Understand that there will be some folks that are cautious about that, and that's all good, if you're making that decision for your own family. But, and not just in Washington, but I mean, all around the country, there are folks, especially with the Caps in particular, that are, a strong playoff possibility going into the NHL playoffs. But there are just a lot of teams out there that have fans that are itching to go watch their teams in person.
Yeah, I really like it as a Caps fan, as somebody who wants to see them, loved, man, that atmosphere 2018 when they won the Stanley Cup. Like, I couldn't imagine. I didn't have the opportunity to go, but I couldn't imagine what that would have been like. So to, by the time this comes around, I think it's slated for June 11th. I want to say the Caps would be pretty deep into the latter half of the second round, I want to say. So here's hoping.
Have they put the stipulations in place? Like, is it going to be, you have to be, show your vaccination card? I mean, have they put that out there yet? Do we know?
I don't think I've seen that anywhere, but I am not. I'm not well versed in the coverage of it.
Yeah, I imagine it's going to be something like that. I mean, it's going to have some kind of CDC guidelines. I can't imagine them just being like, all right, we're good, like get on out there. But I don't know. I mean,
I'm kind of with Joe with this. Like, is no matter when they open things up, there's going to be people saying we shouldn't open up. We shouldn't open up. It's a choice. I'm not going to go to any of those games, or I'm not going to go to. I might go by myself to a baseball game this summer, but it's just a personal choice. I think no matter what time we open up, there's going to be a certain part of the population that thinks we should never open up, and it's just not. It's a good way of kind of opening back up and getting things back to normal without really risking too much.
We had this conversation earlier, and we're kind of in a disagreement about it. About we want to go, but like you were saying, like it's a personal choice. You probably wouldn't go until you felt better. I'm actually reaching that stage where I'm feeling better. I'm feeling better as far as like vaccinations are out there. I know I've been vaccinated and waited my 2 weeks and everything else. My family's been vaccinated. I know that we can still apparently carry it, but we'd be asymptomatic. But if there was some kind of something in place to proving that, you've been vaccinated, that kind of thing. Now, those who haven't, are they going to go absolutely nuts and say that, we're being denied rights of entering the game? Probably. I mean, I don't know how much weight it'll carry, or what's going to happen with it, but I would say I'm starting to teeter, and I don't know if that's also just me being anxious. I did get a taste of going to a Nationals game, a couple of weeks ago, and everything was extremely socially distanced, but I still enjoyed it. It gave me a flashback and some semblance of normalcy, and that was there was nobody around us, and everything was, blocked off, so you couldn't sit there and zip line shut, so I can only imagine when everything comes back. I know that the closest thing I had to it was I went to an Applebee's in out in my area, and it was a absolute jam-packed house, and it was somewhat uncomfortable, like, because I was just looking around, and it did surprise me. I didn't realize how much I'd become accustomed to wearing the mask, and being up close to people. And I was there kind of saying, somebody was having surgery, and so I wanted to be there and show my support. They weren't having surgery at the Applebee's, in case you guys were wondering. They were going to do that somewhere else.
That's the 220, right? The 2 for 20.
Pre-op, yeah. Yeah, the just in case this doesn't go well meeting. And it was legitimately uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable when I go to that Applebee's also, only because I'm not permitted back there.
Yeah, I remember that. I don't know. I'm not talking about that story. But you said some apparently several inappropriate things at the bar.
That's for touching base after dark.
Okay, yeah, that's a different game. Yeah, we will talk about that because that is a fantastic story. I mean, I don't, for our tens of listeners, you essentially said something wrong.
No, I did not say anything.
You were
members of my party said things that were
that you didn't know were wrong, that you didn't realize what you were saying.
They were wrong then, and they're wrong now.
Right. They're very wrong. But you didn't realize what you were saying. And until the bartender told you, and you were like, "Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I apologize." We got to go. Yeah, I'm sure you were all very articulate about it as well.
We had our best grammar and fluid English at that point, also.
Yeah, I'm sure. That was also during hockey season, if I remember correctly. Was it?
It was. The Capitals were out. It was the Bruins and Flyers.
Yeah. So
some year, I think the year the Bruins won, or maybe the Flyers won.
I want to get into that because I want to talk about the Bruins here and the Caps
Sure.
a little bit. Before we get into that, I also want to talk to you guys about Russell Westbrook. We are not big NBA guys. I mean, like we pay attention, I think, moderately. Andy, you might actually be one of our top guys, and Joe, you watch a little bit as well. Like, were you paying attention to the Russell Westbrook stuff? Are you impressed by it?
No, when I first saw it, I've never liked Russell Westbrook just because he's kind of.
Why? I am curious about that because
he's kind of not a friendly person in conferences, like the press conferences. He doesn't really do that part of it, and he's kind of smug. But his teammates love him, and all those characteristics make him a killer on the basketball court. So all those things that I don't like about him are what makes him a really good player. And the whole triple-double thing has just been insane that he's been able to do is what he's been able to do compared to LeBron or KD or any superstar since Oscar Robertson. He's the only one to be able to get that many triple-doubles.
Yeah, the next active person, I think, is LeBron at like 90-something.
Yeah.
And so he's doubled that. I mean,
which is crazy.
Absolutely insane. I mean, he's a freak athlete. We always knew that. Is he a stat patter? I mean, is that what he's doing? Or do you think this is just his style of play? I mean, is he really that good?
I think the whole triple-double thing has really just gained momentum. I think a lot of the players in the 80s and 90s probably, if they played today's style of ball, a lot of them would have triple-double. That's just the way they changed it. People were scorers back then, or they got assists, or they got rebounds. You see, like people like Dennis Rodman, who has 0 points, 48 minutes, and 30 rebounds. Nobody does that anymore. So just the game has changed.
Kid was like, maybe the closest thing I can think of. From yesteryear.
I know these guys.
Yeah, you do. You pay attention.
I was thinking of John Stockton. If you want to go back even further.
Yeah, dropping that assist, are you? So some debate is, do you think he's going to be going down as one of the greatest point guards of all time? Because statistically, he'll probably be there. I know you're shaking your head, and I'm kind of leaning towards you. But when all those numbers nerds who are going to get out there and say, look at it. I mean, like even this year, he's averaging a triple-double. I mean, he is as a guard, he's out there averaging a triple-double. Like John Stockton never did that. Some of your Jason Kidd, Steve Nash. I mean, some of these guys, and I know these aren't like kind of your top tier.
I think the years of calling people shooting guard, point guard, small forward, power forward are gone. It's kind of there's 5 guys playing basketball now. It's not the Steph Curry is still a point guard, but he's shooting 3-pointers from half court and still scoring 30 points a game, or all close to it anyways. So it's just that the whole role of a point guard is just not quite. With LeBron is the one bringing the ball up to run the offense. He's not a point guard. He's just
a point forward.
Exactly. It's different now.
Yeah. What do you think of Russell Westbrook's play? I mean, like in coming to DC, I know that a lot of people were up in arms about John Wall leaving, and they're crying in their Cheerios that John Wall left because he was the face of the DC franchise. I was on our MSB Weekly show talking about it, and people were legitimately upset that he was leaving, and they can't believe they traded for Russell Westbrook. And I remember saying at the time, I would have traded the backup baseball cards for just to get rid of that contract. So in order to get a similar contract, a guy who's averaging a triple double, I know it didn't really like gel right away, but after COVID and everything else, and now they're kind of getting on track. I don't think there's a single team that wants to play them in the playoffs. And I know they haven't clinched the spot, but I think they're one win away from clinching a spot or one.
And you were saying in the pre-show that they're playing better defense. They're playing a team defense now.
And they're still giving up like 130 points, but they're still.
You told me before the trade, John Wall versus Westbrook. I would rather have Westbrook because John Wall just between injuries and underperforming, he just wasn't living up to being the face of the franchise.
What's the best ability?
I mean, you guys are talking about how much does he mean to the game and everything like that. The fact that you're talking about if the Wizards make a playoff spot by the skin of their teeth or not, I think speaks to the value that he may or may not bring to a team. Nobody argues that he is a great stat monger and everything like that. He's hyper athletic. He contributes a lot to the team and everything like that, but he's not a championship contributor, and he never has been in his career. I mean, it's not
finals. He got to the finals. Now, granted, he had James Harden and Kevin Durant also on that team. Two minor role players. Harden was coming off the bench.
Who else in the finals and won some championship? Luke Longley and Bill Cartwright. So I mean, that's hard to.
Right. I mean, I understand he brings value to the team and everything like that, and they would be worse without him, no doubt about it. But he is not a player that is elevating a team to a championship level. And he now has, this is his third team that he's been with that, he has an argument that he's not bringing them up from, relative mediocrity to a.
There's something about the way this team's been playing lately, though. They are something like 13-3 or 13-4 in their last 17 or something like that. And I know it's regular season, and we know that, basketball really starts counting, once it gets to the playoffs. But there is something about this team and the way that he's gelled with Bradley Beal. And it really does look like an all-star game, like when you watch them play. But like, it seems to fit their format. Like, it's not that they're not completely playing defense, but the way that they're playing just seems to be more efficient than what they were before. The role players have kind of more defined roles. And they're using their athleticism a little bit more. And I don't know. I think this team has a real chance of upsetting someone because they're just playing so hot right now. And if Bradley Beal can stay healthy and he can stay healthy, this team went to the finals with John Wall. I think that was 2 or 3 seasons ago. And they, gave the Celtics an absolute run, to make it to the next level. I mean, they were right there. They were on that. That's right when they gave Wall that huge contract. This team might even be better than that team. So I don't know. I mean,
I think what the NBA is doing this year with that the 10-team tournament where there's a play-in tournament for 7, 8, 9, 10, that's making
LeBron's a big fan of, by the way, if you guys didn't read.
Yeah. Well, especially because he's a 7 seed now.
Right.
So it's making these games usually by now the seeds are set and you're either in or you're out. You may be a game out of 8. Having that 9-10 being a playoff or play-in game rather is really adding some momentum and some fan appeal to these games in May.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about. Think about 20 years ago. You're talking about the 80s and 90s players and everything like that. The Russell Westbrook, the Russell Westbrook triple double phenomenon is as much a referendum on the NBA change from the last 20 years as it is about he's a quality player, but his style of play would not have produced 180 or whatever triple doubles in the last, if he was playing 30 years ago, right? And
nobody else is doing it though.
I didn't hear what you
did. So I said
nobody else is doing it.
Nobody else is doing it.
But I think, and Joe brings up a really good point. If Westbrook played from say like 82 to 96, he's either going to be shooting 3-pointers or he's going to be passing the ball and shooting long twos. He's not going to be going in for rebounds because you think the big guys from the 80s and 90s would let this guard come in and they pride themselves on not letting guards get rebounds. That's why you have guys like John Stockton who would get 15 assists a game and only get a couple of rebounds because he knew what he was supposed to be doing. That's just kind of how it was back then. And I know it's, an old head mentality to compare the 80s to now, but it was a different game back then.
And if you really think about it, I mean, what is there 15 players that you would take in the NBA right now before Russell Westbrook? And I think there's a lot of people that would say yes, certainly 10. And it's certainly close if you said 15. And I think that's a referendum on what we're talking about here.
I think you're right there. I think he's probably somewhere right around that 15 range. I mean, I'm not going to pull a list off the top of my head. I mean, but obviously there's the big ones. But God bless it, Joe. I am going to have to sit down and make a list later.
God bless it, indeed.
But I mean, statistically, and I know we, despite what we look like now, there was a time when we were all, semi-athletic, and we understand the difference between yeah. There
was a time or two when I fucked around and got a triple double, like the song
I had a bad night. Yeah, I don't know. Like, there is something about the numbers versus the wins, because his plus minus for the season is still minus. I mean, he's still like minus 1.3 or something like that.
I think a comparison we can make, or a visualization we can make, is the triple double stat in the NBA being what the quarterback wide receiver relationship has gone from in the 80s till now. It's like, there's totally different a game between the two of them.
And also the style that he plays, like, he is the central focus. It's almost like I know Bradley Beal, is his wingman in all of this, and his kind of outlet, to help him get some distance between the defenders. But there's a reason why when he was with Durant and when he was with Harden, and Serge Ibaka, I think, was on that team, they didn't win. Now, some of it, I believe, is because they hit a buzzsaw, but in the finals. But some of that too is he wasn't he needs to be by himself. He does better when it's just him. He doesn't do well on group projects. I am the guy who you're going to hand the ball to. I'm your best chance of winning, and I'm okay with that. Between him and Beal, it makes the Wizards interesting. I actually think it's going to make them appealing for free agents next year, and they could actually, I think, next year be a legitimate chance at winning the Eastern Conference, but we'll see. But before we, get down that path, and I'm sure we'll rehash on that later, the biggest thing that's happening, at least for our guys, is the Caps are entering the playoffs. We know who they're facing now. They're going to be facing the Boston Bruins. They're actually supposed to be playing them, I believe, now or playing them tonight. I don't know. I don't know who's starting or anything like that, because I think Boston was pretty much sitting most of their guys. I imagine the Capitals would do the same. Can give us an idea what's happening in the playoffs.
So I'll jump in from the Cap side and
excuse me, pardon me,
a little bit of the East, and hopefully Joe can back me up on the West. The Caps and Bruins are playing tonight. It's 1-1 with just under 8 minutes left to go. There's definitely some lower level guys playing today that probably were getting at least more minutes than they ordinarily would. Unfortunately, like hockey, it's not quite like NFL, where you have, a player and a half for every position.
A Tim Tebow.
Yeah, stop. You have 18 skaters and 2 goalies, and those 18 skaters, they play, right? And you might have a couple extra on your roster. I think you can carry, 23 total on your roster, so you can have 3 extra skaters, however you want to delineate that out. So it's not like you can bring in a whole new shift of guys and rest a bunch of guys tonight. For the Capitals, they're dinged up. Ovi's back for the first time in what feels like a month. Carlson's still down. Oshie got nicked up the other night. Backstrom was nicked up a little bit the other night. Kuznetsov is back on the COVID restriction list for one reason or another. There were some shenanigans supposedly with him.
Because they were all in the penalty box together.
Well, that was a whole separate, yeah.
Yeah.
They were not physically distanced in the penalty box.
They were not. There was like 8 of those guys in the penalty box.
Yeah, they threw a party.
Got trouble staying in their hotel room, but that's a different topic.
Yeah. So there's just a lot of guys nicked up. It's the same around the league. The Caps did pretty well in terms of injuries throughout the year, where some other teams got hit pretty bad. Pittsburgh just got Malkin back. Boston, half of Boston
Great.
seems like it's been out all year,
Right.
right? So it's like the Caps kind of took out some teams early on, but it's kind of catching up with them now, and you just hope that guys are 75% or better to
Is
start
this
the
a good matchup? As the Bruins? I mean, because I know I saw that for the season they're down. They have a losing record against the Bruins, but I
Yeah,
also know that the team's got. I mean, they had plenty of injuries happen this season. They had lots of kind of circumstantial things happen. And the team seems to be playing pretty well right now.
I'd say for the most part, the Capitals probably match up a little bit better with Boston right now, especially with Boston as nicked up as they are too. The Caps, they got smoked a couple times by Boston, but they also laid the wood to Boston once or twice as well. Same thing with the Islanders. Islanders smacked them around a little bit, but the Caps got some good wins, especially lately. It took 3 out of 3 consecutive games a couple weeks back that were really key. The Penguins is somebody I definitely don't want to see in the first round, and by all struck of the luck, the Islanders will take care of them, because the Penguins, I don't want to think that they're back in the Capitals' minds already.
They always seem to. I mean, I remember when the Caps won the playoffs or when they won the championship, they were able to get through Pittsburgh, and that was great. But realistically, that's not a normal occurrence.
It's just like this weird Pittsburgh thing. It's like Crosby and Letang and like a bunch of guys they got at the bus stop, and they just beat the Capitals. And I just don't understand it sometimes.
Yeah, I know. Sidney Crosby might as well have mashed potatoes for brains at this point, but somehow he finds a way to beat the Capitals every single year, and it breaks my heart every single year.
Yeah.
Now, how much is Zdeno Chara going to have an effect on this? I know I was reading an article where they were saying that you could see Chara already calling out the plays, saying, like he knows even the minute signals that are happening, and he's been pointing them out to his teammates. Do you think, they're going to make those adjustments? I'm sure professionals do. But do you think having him, as a signing, do you think that's going to make a big difference?
I'd say his intangibles and the things he's already done for the team are going to be more helpful.
His intangibles as being 8 feet tall and
yeah, he's the Sasquatch have to look up to fucking Zdeno. But I think he's been a really solid player, right? Like he's leadership personified, right? And he's he was a captain in Boston for a long time. Right. And then he came here, and like from the jump, it was just like the amount of respect that the guys.
Tom Wilson was a lot happier. Yeah.
Yeah. Like granted, Zdeno Chara is like respected throughout the league, but like the guys just drew him right away. And like Aziz come out and he's like stood up against someone, like he pummeled Matt Martin from the Islanders a few weeks back because Martin took a run at somebody else, and it's just like he does hockey things right, and it's like I think like some of those things, and he's played a lot better than I thought he would. I think what he's
really
lost.
Well, he's limited minutes, right? Like he's been kind of limited.
Yeah, he's not in the number 1 pairing. He's probably not even on the number 2 some nights. But the thing that obviously he was going to be down as a skater, but what he's lost in his skate step, right? He's got that reach still, and he's got just like the sheer size and being the wily veteran, right? Like he knows, he just did the hockey sense, obviously, is through the roof. So he's definitely been a lot more of a value add than I really thought he was going to be. So very, very good pickup.
If you had to carry his stick, and I mean that his hockey stick, like to be specific, what would that look like for you? Like, because I've seen some of the Capitals try to do it, like in ice footage.
Yeah, like those telescoping like painting sticks. Like I'd have to hold on to one of those to like reach out and get.
I went to a concert once and saw a guy playing like one of those giant, I don't know, with oboes. That's what it would look like for me carrying his hockey stick. Okay, so I guess prediction. Before this even gets started, they're a big team. The East is a beast. Do they get through?
I think they could beat the Bruins. It's all about goaltending in the playoffs.
Do we have a hot goaltender right now? I know that Holtby's gone, so we don't have like a hot goaltender. But
flip a coin, right? Because Vitek Vanacek, who's been probably taking the lion's share of the starters net this year, he's been perfectly fine at times, but he's also like, there's at least a goal a game that's like, hey, this is the NHL guy. Like you got to be able to stop that, right? And then
people like that in the playoffs. That's
right. And like Craig. I'm forgetting his last name. Craig Anderson played the last game and like only gave up a goal against, and it's like he probably shouldn't be in the NHL anymore. He's still doing that, right? Like it's weird. And then you got Samsonov, who's Russia hand wavy things. I don't know what his situation is, but it's not as nice as the had, and to go up against like some of the other much more stable situations in the East is we'll see.
Yeah, well, the East is kind of a beast now. Joe, can you kind of tell us how the playoffs is laid out this year? Because honestly, and I feel naive for not knowing this, but when you were explaining it pre-show, it made a lot of sense, and I wasn't paying attention, I guess. So how is the playoff set up this year?
Yeah, I mean, so during Andrew's referendum on the East, I mean, you think about how this year is set up, and each team has played each other in their own division 8 times throughout the course of the season. And so, the Pens, Caps, Bruins, and Islanders have all seen each other a ton of times. And so there's 4 divisions in the NHL, and they've all only played their own division all year long. And so this year, in addition to that repetitiveness that they've seen each other all year long, they're going to see each other in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs too. And so to even see anybody outside of your own division, you're going to have to get through 2 of the same teams that you've seen all year long. And specifically in the East, where the Caps are playing against the Pens, Bruins, and Islanders, I mean, that is a heavyweight division. I don't care which
That's
division.
The SEC,
Yeah, it's a heavyweight division. Whatever team makes it out of the East this year is going to have earned their spot in the Eastern Conference Finals. And so, I mean, basically, the top 4 teams from each division are going to play each other, and they are going to play a 4-team playoff, and the team that makes it out of that round of 4 is going to be the team that represents that division in the finals going forward. And there'll be 4 teams from the 4 divisions, and they will go ahead.
First one of the 4?
First one of the 4.
Yeah, I mean, like a first one of the 4 wins.
Yeah, they're all 7-game series.
They're all 7-game series.
All 7-game series.
I'm sorry. Sorry, there's a better term for that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
I think the real interesting part, though, will be once the teams get out of their division, like the last 4 in all of the NHL, those 4 teams, like the Eastern and Western Conference Finals, will have not seen each other literally all year long. Not even
That's
once.
So cool.
Not even once. And in the NHL Finals, the Stanley Cup Finals will have not even seen each other once all year long. And so that, to me, is the coolest part about this. And so there will be some heavyweight battles leading up to that, and then ending with 2 teams that have not seen anything about each other all year long.
So is it safe to say that the seeding really doesn't matter this year, because having those teams play each other, you may have a team with a 4 seed that's in the division that just has been able to game plan against the 1 seed and somehow make it out of that region to come against somebody they never played before?
I think that's fair. I mean, I think that it does matter for home ice advantage and everything like that. But other than that, I mean, it only matters for getting out of your division. And once you're out of your division, it's just whoever can survive after that. So I think it'll be awesome.
And the Caps have a big team. We've talked about this before. So really they're kind of built for the playoffs. I mean, they're built for a run if they can stay healthy. I don't think anyone looks forward to playing them.
Yeah, that's for sure. They bring a lot to the table. They play very heavy, as we've said before. They obviously have a ton of skill guys, including probably one of the best we'll see. They do a lot of things well. They got a lot of balance again this year, which is one of the things that propelled them in 2018, right? They have 3 lines that can score, not quite at will, but pretty regularly. Guys playing on the 3rd line. If when you have everybody like a Daniel Sprong, like a Connor Sherry that can, both are double digits this year, like that's some nice balance. It's just a matter of everybody going to be playing well. And the thing that's hurt the Caps in the past that drives me crazy, and I saw it a lot with Reardon, maybe hopefully not as much with Laviolette, but when they get smacked in the mouth or like somebody stops their primary option, like they just are terrible at making adjustments.
Yeah.
So that's like something that's always made me nervous about the Capitals. So that's a big key, is right.
Do you think
if somebody steps up to them, can they adjust?
These teams who have played against each other, they've already made all those adjustments. I mean, like they've played each other all year long. Do you think that benefits the less talented teams, or do you think that benefits the more talented teams because they're going to be able to make more adjustments?
I honestly think that it benefits whoever has the most toughness, whatever that means, and also the hottest goaltender, and to Andrew's point earlier, the hot goaltender is going to make it through, and the team that can take a punch in the mouth and make it through and bounce back from a bad goal that they let up or anything like that is going to be the team that makes it out of their division.
Yeah, and Jim made the point about home ice too, and Andy, you talk about the seeds. Like hockey, home ice is actually can be pretty strong just in terms of like matchups and who like you talk about adjustments and things
It's
like
not
that.
just the fans; it's the actual way the game is played.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. Like, at each stoppage, right? So like if we're gonna do a face off, you choose like what line's gonna go out. So like your scoring line or your checking line
Right.
or whatever.
Home
The
team
home
advantage.
team gets to pick their line last, so you can match up better, right? You see what your opponent put
Right.
out, you can have an answer to them, whether it's a defensive pair, whether it's a forward checking pair, whatever, forward group. That's can sometimes be a huge advantage,
Absolutely, especially
terms
because
of, like,
minute details.
matchups.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
Now, as far as the Caps go, how is their home ice advantage as far as compared to others?
So it's a great place to play. And then in terms of just the atmosphere, and by the way, they just went up 2-1. It looks like late in the third, so they'll probably be able to squeak out this one. Great atmosphere, great place to play in. Strategically, tactically, with that line change kind of thing, they have fared historically in the playoffs, especially. They do fare better. I think they probably have a better home ice record, with some exceptions, some outliers, of course, but they just seem to get in a better flow of play. Going back to some of the older series with the Penguins and things like that, they always seem to do better at home.
I just want to point out how much I love this team. I really do love. Like, I know that we're getting close to kind of the end of an era with the Capitals, with age of all kind of like the Backstroms, Ovi. There's a good chance Oshie might get picked up in the
things like that.
the expansion draft. Or say it again.
No, I said don't put that out into the atmosphere. The hope that we should talk about this another time, because I'm super excited to talk about expansion draft things and just general
Big
offseason
Kraken
stuff.
fan,
Yeah, I'm gonna release the Kraken.
Yeah.
And then we can also talk about the expansion team.
Right.
So there's talk now that the Capitals might be wise to protect Oshie and expose somebody like Kuznetsov, who's got a monstrous contract and is kind of a knucklehead anyway. But there's a lot of back and forth with that. But that's, like I said, that's another conversation. I don't want TJ Oshie to go anywhere.
Gentlemen, we have less than a minute before we get cut off.
All right.
I know that we had a big play tonight, but honestly, as always, this is always my favorite part of the week. I'm going to finish whatever I have in here to my knuckle puck. Thank you, Mullies. But here's to you, gentlemen. Can't wait to do it again. We'll see you guys again next week. Okay. Have a good night, guys.
Good. Later.
All right. You guys hopping back on once this cuts us off?
Yeah. Same link, right?
Could be. Yep. Did someone just flush a toilet? What happened?
I was moving my can.
Oh, okay. No, but yeah.
The Capitals playoff hopes.
He's actually been sitting on the toilet the whole time.
Right. He's got one of those fake backgrounds.
Yeah. And he's not done yet,
Yeah.
Courtesy flush.
Yeah. I'm keeping this. This is where I ended it now. Have a good night.